If you've watched my channel for a while, or anybody else's really, I'm sure by now you've heard them talk about Darkmoon Card greatness, which is going to be a very expensive and highly sought after trinket by pretty much anyone who uses strength, agility, and to some extent, intellect. That's mainly holy paladins we're talking about there, but every strength user, every agility user, probably going to want Darkmoon Card greatness. Now, I'm sure by now that you're aware that it comes from Inscription, the new profession that's going to come with Wrath of the Lich King. But how much effort is it actually going to take? Or how much gold is it going to cost? I'm going to break all of that down in this video, which you can absolutely use as a guide to getting Darkmoon Card greatness as quickly as possible. I've been doing extensive testing on this because I want Darkmoon Card greatness on 3 different characters, and I don't want to be spending 50 to 100,000 gold for each of them like I can foresee them being. So if you haven't noticed by now, you'll see the crafting window and a chat box. I've been making 100 Darkmoon cards during this intro. After numerous tests of running 100 cards, 50 cards, another 50 cards, 25, I've got to the sweet spot that actually crafting 50 cards in one go is the best way to go to guarantee you being able to get at least enough cards to craft Darkmoon Card greatness. Well, the Nobles deck. You may not get ace through to 8, but you will get duplicates that you can then trade for cards that you do need. Out of the initial batch of 100 cards crafted, we could craft 2 of each deck and still had loads of cards left over to trade. From the first 100 cards made, we were actually very lucky with 11 Noble cards left over, which you could trade some and easily make another 2 decks from it. So from 100 cards, that would be 4 Nobles decks. Quite a lot. We're going to break down exactly what that means. The Undeath deck rewards Darkmoon Card Death, which is a crit and chance to do some shadow damage. You'd probably get around 1,000 gold for this deck because a lot of people would use it on their ult just as a quick, I've got a free level 80 epic trinket. Chaos gives you Berserker, which is resilience and a stacking crit buff. And finally, Prisms gives you Illusion for spell power and a mana return shield. This for ults isn't actually too bad to start with as soon as you ding 80 because the spell power is similar to that of other trinkets. If we then try again but with only 50 cards, we know the only aim from this is to get 8 Nobles cards. We don't care which ones they are because we can just trade 1 for 1 with the cards that you need. If out of crafting 50 cards we can consistently get 8 Noble cards, then we know roughly what sort of mats we're going to need to go out and mass farm to get a card as quickly as possible. This is no true science because ultimately it is RNG, and if you were to have some extreme luck, you could get all 8 cards out of 8 crafts. But let's be realistic, the odds there are extremely slim. I crafted batches of 50 cards around 30 times, and from the 50 made, we can always get at least 8 Nobles cards. Sometimes we get a full deck. So from this 50 example, we actually made a full deck and have 6 cards left over to sell. These individual Noble cards are going to sell for a lot of gold, remember that. I continued to do sets of 50 cards, and every single time we ended up with at least 12 Noble cards, but some attempts would require trading some duplicates, as mentioned before. In fact, on one of the attempts, it only took 28 cards before there was a full Nobles deck, but on other attempts it was in the mid-40s. So if you aim at making 50 cards as close to launch as possible, it's going to be a safe bet that you will get yourself a deck. Now that's all great, but what do we need to make 50 cards? That sounds like a lot. It is a lot. Each craft needs 1 Resilient Parchment, which is just purchased from a vendor, 6 Snowfall Ink, 3 Ink of the Sea, and 3 Eternal Life. So really, if you follow this method, the first thing to do is farm the herbs, because as you're herbing, you'll get Eternal Lives. But the odds of you getting enough are very, very slim, in fact, impossible. So it's a case of getting roughly the right amount of herbs and then going out and farming the rest of the Eternal Life that you need. So starting with the herbs and rough numbers, if you had 200 Adder's Tongue, that would equate to around 23 Snowfall Ink and 61 Ink of the Sea. Remember, you can trade the Ink of the Sea for more Snowfall Ink at a ratio of 10 to 1. For every 2 to 3 stacks of herbs you'll get an Eternal Life. So on average, getting 10 stacks of herbs, you can expect 3 to 4 Eternal Life, which would be enough to craft 1 card. But you just got enough ink to make 4 cards, trading in some Ink of the Seas for a Snowfall Ink. What you'll be missing now is the Eternal Life. So let's assume you went out and farmed them. You have enough now from 10 stacks of Adder's Tongue to actually make 4 of your 50 cards. We might as well craft them and see if you would have got lucky. We actually did. 2 out of the 4 cards were Nobles. Gotta love the gamble. Now you're probably wondering if the level of the herb matters, and yes it does. If we do exactly the same with Lich Bloom, which is basically alongside Iceform the highest level of herb, and yeah, the macro that you just saw on screen as well, you just want to list all the herbs in it, so when you press mill, it will just mill anything that's in your bag, you don't have to click. You're welcome. I did a couple of runs of 200 and it always ended up similar to Adder's Tongue. However, if you was to go for the lower herbs like Dead Nettle, it has a much lower chance of giving you the icy pigment you need for the Snowfall Ink. So as a general rule of thumb, any herbs from Sholazar Basin onwards, in terms of level of zone, you'll have a much easier time getting icy pigment. Me personally, I would normally go for Lich Bloom and Iceform because they should have the highest chance of getting icy pigments. If you did decide to become a member of the channel, you'll see a video there in the next couple of days, probably actually today, talking about exactly how I'm going to make 3 Darkmoon cards as quickly as possible. And yes, there are going to be some tips in that, not included in here because obviously I don't want to ruin some of these farms which are actually very, very good. At least being behind the membership option means it will limit the amount of people that are going to see it at best. And those who support the channel by being a member get a little bit back. So anyway, you can now work out roughly how many stacks of herbs you're going to need. So if we got 4 cards out of farming 10 stacks of Adder's Tongue and a similar amount out of Lich Bloom, as long as you get around 2,500 to 2,600 herbs, which will equate to about 125 to 130 stacks, you're going to be golden. But let's say now you've got all your herbs on your bank character ready to mass mill. So you're sat there with 125 to 130 stacks of herbs. You know you've got enough to actually make your cards. You just need the Eternal Life. Where do you go? Well, I'm glad you asked. So the best place is the Living Lashes and Mature Lashes in Wintergrasp. The reason they're the best is because they do drop them, but also they can be gathered from them for even more. The problem is, as you can expect, they'll be farmed to absolute death. What you need to understand here as well is this is another reason why faction balance really matters in Classic Wrath. You can farm on these spots to get Eternals all day long, but if your faction owns Wintergrasp, you can kill the Revenant versions of each elemental, and they've got a 100% chance to drop the crystallized life that we're after. So farming here when you own Wintergrasp is the most lucrative way to get these, but of course it is going to be contested. You're going to be fighting against bots. You're going to be fighting against everybody. But unfortunately, it is the most efficient way of getting life. There are plenty of other places that you can get them as well, but you'll have to have a hunt around for them and see what works best for you. What I would do if I was going down the Wintergrasp option, which I'll be honest with you, I'm not. I've got other plans, but this is honestly, I'm not telling you one place and I'm going to another for any other reason than the fact that it is going to be very, 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 very oversaturated with people. But this is actually the best place, uncontested, to get your Eternal Lives. But if you was in Wintergrasp, you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone here and kill some elementals, fly around Wintergrasp herbing, and then go back and kill some more, rinse and repeat. Really comes down to what your preference is, whether you want to split this into 2 farms by flying around and getting all your herbs first, then focusing on the Eternal Lives, then crafting all the cards, and then looking at what you got left over, what you can trade, and how much gold you can get for your efforts. But ultimately, doing this, making around 50 cards, making that your aim, going, right, well, if I make 50, I should be safe. You'll not only be safe, you'll probably make a really good profit as well, selling the excess cards or trading the excess cards to try and make another deck. Maybe then actually investing a little bit of gold to ensure you complete a second deck and then selling that deck for 50, 60, 70, 80k, whatever it's going to go for. But ultimately, if you follow this guide, I say the term guide loosely, but if you follow this guidance, same thing as guide, isn't it? You'll be all right. But anyway, make sure you like, subscribe. As I say, consider joining the channel as a member because I will be putting out lots of tips that are not included in the video. So consider that. Roll the outro. There's lots of ways you can support the channel to keep me here putting out World of Warcraft content and covering all future MMOs. Consider joining the channel as a member. You get access to emotes. Everyone will know you're a member when you comment on future videos because you get a nice icon next to your name. And you get access to members-only videos, which I'll be putting a lot of on the channel throughout the year. Additionally, there's a Patreon link in the description as well. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you on the next one.